Hello world. Patricia, O'Connor, and Frida Reba Dorsey here today on the bonsai balcony as I sashay my way in here behind camera. Got to dole out the per diem to my co-star. I don't know if she might be a little bit too far down there in the foreground. She is here in spirit. Today on the bonsai balcony, it is a beautiful day in Alameda, California. The last time I did a show out here like this, my face was totally dark. This might be the case this time too. The issue is I tried turning off the light overhead, and I don't think the material looks as good, and I'm not really crazy about going without the light, going without the hat, which is why my face is in shadow. And whenever I get an exposure correct for me, it comes at the expense of other things that we're trying to focus on. Not necessarily more important than me, but other things we're trying to focus on. And what we're focusing in on today is one of my favorite trees. This is a cork bark oak, Corcus suber. This tree came to me. You're gonna get a double pound. This tree came to me from it was an acquisition that I made when we got a break in the middle of COVID. At first, COVID clamped down everything, and during that clamp down was kind of whenever I started consuming mass amounts of material about bonsai trees, and decided to go and had done enough research to find out what was a drivable distance. And then I started checking those locations out and seeing what gardens could be gone to and stuff. And that led me to about 30 miles from here to a bonsai garden by an old bonsai master whose name was Johnny Cedar. I think he has since passed away. When I repotted this tree a couple of years ago, I saw underneath the scion, underneath the dead center of the tree, what looked to me like a flat cut out a piece of trunk, like this, except it was below the root line, and it was about as big around as my wrist. I suspect at some point this may have been a narrow layer. I don't know. I'm not going to say anything about about how well they do to that, or whether or not that's super doable or not super doable. But I would say that whenever I was looking at the bottom little right directly underneath that little area underneath the tree, I got the impression I was looking at a narrow layer, something that had been a limb or a trunk or something that was fairly thick whenever that part was cut off, because you could see where it was cut, and that part was like as big around as my wrist. Anyway, I'm picking weeds right now. What we're going to be doing on this cork bark oak, this Corcus suber, is we're going to trim it up a little. We're going to, when it comes to this tree, every year it just totally outperforms everything else on the balcony when it comes to how much it flushes out. And whereas with my coastal oak, I've already started looking at it, and it is so full. It has flushed out so much already that I'm looking at that and going, wow, it's just blowing my cork bark oak away, which is not what I'm used to thinking of. And then I got to remember, I kind of remember, um, this guy starts off a little slower than the coastal oak in the spring, and then it comes on with a vengeance soon thereafter. And the all of those little shoots that are coming out all over the tree, those can elongate out uh, so long, so fast, and the tree loves to be apical dominant, which is to say that it's always going to try to push the envelope to be taller, longer, wider. And as bonsai, we want it to stay lower, smaller, fatter. So we have to, this one especially, I have to watch. At some point, our new growth, when it comes out, because we feed this tree and because we water this tree. Now, I mean, and by feed the tree and water the tree, I mean, right now you see all of this is bio gold, and it's just, some of it is just now starting to break down. So there's fairly fresh bio gold on here, and there is old bio gold that is on its way out, but is still there doing stuff. And it is always like that. We are constantly feeding this tree. And one of the things you learn about cork bark oaks is they are drought resistant. I never push that. I water it every day. I water it thoroughly every day. And to water this tree thoroughly in this size pot and not have to worry about part of it not getting water enough, I water it through, and then I come back over it again when I get through watering everything else and do it again. I do a couple of trees that way. This one being one of them. Excuse me. So I'm also weeding while I'm talking here. But the thing about it being apical dominant, and that just means it wants to grow out long. That also means that it has hormones stored in the tips of all of this stuff. And as it grows out, you can already see the distance from here to the next leaf is long. And this part hadn't had as long to grow, and this part hadn't had as long to grow, but their spacing to start off with is already longer than these were when they started off, because every time we get a new, after a new follicle, we get a new segment, they're starting off a little longer and getting longer faster. So it's just elongating out. And all of that is telling the stuff behind it to be cool. We got this. We're the tops. So when you go through and you cut these, you prune them back. See, I've got some nice leaf matter here, and then a huge long spot with nothing. Boom, gone. That will vibricate off, giving us that one branch. We'll make two. Also, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to which direction the leaf was. I think the last leaf I cut was that way, which probably means that we'll get a branch coming from the base of that leaf going that way. Also, it will back bud a lot. So if we get one in a direction we like or we don't, like a friend of mine's blog says, you'll still get plenty of choices. And by a friend of mine's blog, just when I was loading up to do this drop, someone whose blogs that I follow, Bonsai Tonight, they did a blog, and I will drop a link for that in this video, for Jonas at Bonsai Tonight, because he was pruning or pinching his cork bark oak, and beautiful little tree. It's looks like it's got a really nice base to it, but at the same time, it's way shorter. I nicknamed this tree Log, and I did so because it reminds me of something that you might see in a fireplace. Right. So I'm already looking at some things that are elongated out so far that there's no leaf matter behind them. They're already allocated. They're green and haven't hardened off yet, but the 4 or 5 leaves on the end of the branch are what it thinks is going to be happening next. And back here, it's already dropped some. So, and that was on an immature branch. My solution to that was to cut it back to a desirable length and hope that one of those nodes behind it spike out something, or all of them do. And if it doesn't, it was one of many. So, but the idea is that on this tree, unlike the coastal, I'm trying to build ramification, and if I'll let this year's growth go all year, it'll end up super fat, super long, and with huge internodes in between. And we'll see the energy allocation switch from stuff in up tight to stuff way out on the ends. So whenever we trim our ends, we are releasing these hormones that were stored in those tips, and that hormone is called auxin. And when we release that's kind of like blowing the whistle, telling all the other parts of the tree that what had been seen as the apical dominant portion of the tree is no longer so. And the end result of that is backbuds. Lots and lots of backbuds. So that's what we're doing. We're creating more backbuds, and we are creating more bifurcation. I will get 2 or 3 at least flushes of growth out of this oak. As it gets warmer, it just starts ramping up and just starts really going to town. So yeah, like I said, by cutting these back, not only does that stop that elongation that starts fairly early on, but okay, I'll play. But instead of making something that long and that fat, that would end up being like, we did this last year the same way, we did this the year before that the same way. So we've got like small branches, and incremental forking off, and then if we've got something long and fat that's allowed to grow all season, that would kind of mess that up a little. That would defeat the purpose somewhat. I am also not looking to totally rob this guy of energy, so right now I'm not making a whole lot of decisions as to what stays and what goes. I'm just pretty much indiscriminately cutting all the new stuff back a little. a little to a fair bit. I need to cut that back again. Yeah. Okay. Love this tree. This has been a really rewarding tree to grow. That's going to be really pretty when that bibliculates off. And I have had issues with powdery mildew. Last summer, or last fall, I had an issue with powdery mildew. There was a couple of reasons for that, most of which I probably brought on myself. But as the leaves start to change, it might maybe pull those guys off. You know, whenever it's an evergreen. So what you see of the fall colors is that a third of the foliage turns yellow and then brown, and then will kind of pop off. But before then, before it leaves the stage, it'll be on there expired for a couple of days, and it'll attract powdery mildew, which then, you know, it has no defenses, it's dead. So, or maybe the tree will still defend against it, but it has to because you left it on, or because it's still on there. Not because you left it on there, but because it's still on there. So, also, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of new foliage, and don't water the foliage on this tree. Do not water the foliage on this tree. So last year at the end of the year, when I started seeing, now this is going to be the exciting part of the program. I have hit this pedal before and had this table drop like a guillotine. Let's see what happens. Yeah, there we go, baby. Good table. Good table. So that wasn't too dramatic. All right. We have let stuff grow more out here at the bottom last year. And so we're building on top of that. But last year while I was having this powdery mildew issue, after having not really much in the way of problems most of the summer and the spring and all of that with PM, I reached for a bottle of neem. Ooh, found a dull spot. I reached for a bottle of neem that had probably had most of the water already evaporated out of it, because it was just hanging on the side of my rack, on my a rack with a bunch of seedlings on it. And so it was probably thicker than it should have been. And looking at some powdery mildew, I totally hosed it with this neem, and that, in the concentration that it was in, that wrecked everything. I sprayed it on. Whose fault was that? Well, that would be on me. And it took me a second to go, well, you did notice that looked a little thick. Yeah, I did. And what did you think about that? I thought, well, it's a little stronger and it's gonna kick that powdery mildew's butt. Yeah, maybe. It's hard to tell the difference after you killed it with neem, though. So, but we had already had 2 years of good growth and good building, at least, yeah, 2 years. And we lost a little last year. We didn't lose it wasn't a major setback, and it was during the time that, like I said, that the tree is transitioning. It sheds some foliage and then starts a lot more new. So timing wise, it just, it created another flush right after that. It had enough energy that, like, oh, okay, well, those little spiders seem to be pruning us at the moment. Uh, and it just, as soon as we got, not as soon as we got rid of them, it never stopped flushing out to counter them, and which is just what this tree does. So the sooner, the sooner I could get rid of the problem, the sooner we could start pulling out of it. Was the general feeling I had. Of course, it's enough to make a person anxious. This is a nice looking tree, and I really enjoyed bringing this tree along. When I first picked this tree out, I had a lot to learn, and I noticed that it had some dead leaves on it, and I didn't really spend a lot of time in detail looking at it. Plus, green as grass at Bonsai at the time. When I got it home, I noticed that a lot of those dead leaves belong to the same branches, and a lot of those same branches belong to one or two limbs that were dead. And the motion in them meant that it wasn't apparent to me. So I probably guessed correctly what that was. A lot of nurseries, a lot of gardens at that time were having trouble keeping their gardens up because they had been forced by mandatory work restrictions because of COVID, which means the owner would come through and do a lot more than what they were used to by themselves. And things that are your absolute pride and joy would get watered first and get checked again last before they leave. And things that were known to be drought hardy, you might look at a third as much. It looked to me like maybe this had been looked at a third as much. And I'm gonna let that go. I got some little, yeah, I know, I should probably. Just cutting these tips, just should probably pinch those. I'm gonna try to pinch these. There's just the very tip there. Okay. When I first got this tree, I went through and I cut back all the stuff that was dead, and then I looked at it and I went, yikes. And what I was looking at then was a few branches, and they were really long, and there wasn't a lot of growth close to the tree. There was a little bit of growth on the ends. And I'm like, I don't like the way that looks. But I got 3 branches with a little bit of growth on the end. If I cut those, I got nothing, and I don't know what happens after I got nothing. It might freak out and put out a whole bunch of stuff. It might be that was the last thing that ever happened to this tree. So I don't know what to do. So I basically spent a year watering it enough, but only watering it enough. And then I learned a little bit about the pruning and the advantages of pruning back. The taller parts are all of the tips of the trees to release all those hormones. And I started seeing a lot more back buds. And when I started watering the tree more, I started seeing again a lot more back butts, and then when I started adding bottle gold, and that started working its way in, it's a single. It's a single figure in all of its main ingredients, like 555. So uh, it's not something that works super crazy fast, but it does good. And that those things right there meant that we started building ramification on our cork bark oak, and I'm really looking forward to whenever the difference between this thing outrunning the coastal oak I have behind me in growth. The difference in that is heat, as at least that's the way it works here in the Bay Area. As our heat goes up, which could be any minute. Today was like a nice 70-degree day, but it felt warm compared to what we've been used to the past couple of weeks. Um, but whenever it gets hotter, this thing just starts pouring on the growth. It just really takes off then. Pinch that. Yay, I'm pinching. Like and subscribe if you guys have not already. Our next drop will be, we could probably do something tonight. I bet we could probably do something cool with pines. I don't know. I don't wanna go put any hard labels on tonight, but I appreciate you, and Frida appreciates you, and thank you so much for watching. This has been Frida and I taking care of the little tips on our cork bark oak. And when you have a chance, go down into the description and see Jonas's Bonsai Tonight blog about his work on his cork bark oak, which is a beautiful little tree. And thank you so much for watching.